Hey, it's Harris again. This video is going to be on the question I get a lot is, what is life like after depersonalization disorder? Has your perspective changed? Do you feel like your old self really? Have you had a relapse? And I get these questions a lot, so I kind of want to address all this stuff in this video. There's a lot of things I want to go into. So it's going to differ for different people, but for me, there was a little bit of a perspective change. The question is, how long have you had depersonalization for? And when you get over it, you've gotten older. So your perspective changes with age. You get older, your view on life changes. So is that because of what you experienced with depersonalization, or is that just time and change of environment, age and things like that? For me, there was a bit of a perspective change because there is a kernel of truth to things in depersonalization. Depersonalized thoughts have a kernel of truth to them. You think about the nature of existence. You think about the automaticity of your thoughts, your personality. You think about the automaticity of a lot of things, just your body. A lot of people freak out in depersonalization about the automaticity of their body. That's one of the big things. The desire for control, right? So getting over depersonalization requires relinquishing control and things like that. But you still realize, damn, a lot of things are out of our control. So there is a perspective change. You kind of integrate the truthful components of depersonalized thoughts. And there's some truthful components. There's also a lot of delusional thinking. You sort of integrate that into your new view of life. But you feel like your old self, And so depersonalization is a self state. Depersonalization is the self state in which you feel like you don't have a self. Kind of weird, but basically it's a switch in our head that numbs ourselves. Numbs ourselves to the pain that we're feeling. So there's derealization, there's depersonalization. It's kind of part of the same switch, but some people feel varying degrees of either one of them. And when you get over it, you don't feel depersonalized, and you can actually have kind of trouble thinking depersonalized thoughts because you're out of the self state. It's like someone who's really depressed gets out of depression. They're not in that self state. A self state is kind of like a wall of information, emotional information. You're only able to access certain thoughts, memories, ideas when you're in that self state. When you're in a really depressed self state, you're feeling helpless, you're feeling worthless, you're feeling like there's no hope, you feel like you can't do anything, you feel trapped. But when you're out of depression, you might have trouble actually accessing those thoughts. That's why depression can kind of hit, right? Can hit people, and then you pop into that self state. So if you feel really confident self state, you're gonna have trouble feeling depressed. If you're really depressed, you're gonna have trouble feeling confident. And if you're feeling really, let's say, integrated, right? So I've got a program called the total integration method. The whole idea is to be integrated. Integrating the function of your brain, but also integrating your mind, your emotions, and your body together. And when you're feeling integrated, when you're feeling not depersonalized, you're going to feel a lack of empathy, let's say, for that depersonalized self state when you flip out of it. Because that switch can get turned off. And when you're out, when you're integrated, when you're not depersonalized, you're not derealized, you're just like, you feel normal again. That's why I told people to wait before they make big decisions about what religious affiliation they should have or something like that, because when you're depersonalized, you might feel like, well, Buddhism, I'm just going to be Buddhist because, nothing is real to me. But that's just how you feel. So you're rationalizing based on a feeling, and that's a self state. So if someone's depressed, and I don't know, their view on the world changes and the way they think changes. So when you get out of depersonalization, you feel normal again, and I feel like my old self, let's say. I feel like my old self. The other issue on top of this, you have the whole self state, you flip out of the self state, you feel integrated. There's that. But then there's pre-existing issues, personality issues. Did you have anxiety before? Did you have depression before? Were you kind of obsessive? If you haven't dealt with these issues, a lot of those issues will still be there. And millions of people have just anxiety. Millions of people have just depression. Millions of people are OCD. That's why when people say, oh, depersonalization is just anxiety, well, how do you explain the fact that some people have panic attacks every day, are agoraphobic, have panic disorder, yet they don't experience depersonalization? How do you explain that? If depersonalization is just anxiety, that doesn't make any sense, because a lot of people with extremely bad anxiety never get depersonalization. So you can still be anxious after you get over depersonalization. You can still have anxiety and you still have depression. like I'm not trying to diminish the value of getting over depersonalization on the one hand. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to diminish that or minimize the value of getting over depersonalization. It's great. It's great. It really is. But I don't want to make it sound like something that it isn't, because you're still going to feel. In fact, you might feel more. You're going to feel more of your emotions. And some of those emotions are going to be not extremely pleasant all the time. That's life, right? So you're going to be a normal person. So you're still going to be you, and you're going to be more you, because depersonalization is really kind of, in a lot of ways, it is sort of the alien self, like internalized parents, internalized garbage, just crap that's kind of floating around in your head. And getting over it, part of it is rejecting the parental interject, rejecting this alien self that's kind of been put in your head. And that sounds a little woo-woo, a little strange, but you'll become more grounded in your emotions, more grounded in what you want, more grounded in who you are when you go over depersonalization. So you'll be more integrated, more founded in your emotional core of who you are when you get over depersonalization. So you're going to feel things more, and that being that open to feeling it's good, but not all emotions are really, really happy ones. So getting over depersonalization, I do feel like my old self. That's what a lot of people ask. But there's a bit of a perspective change when it comes to, like I said, some of the thoughts I had. I don't think it's totally unlegitimate. Like, I don't think everything that a depersonalized person thinks is dumb. A lot of it's erratic. There's a lot of delusional thinking. Like, some people think I've already died, and they start thinking I'm a ghost, or just stuff like that. But I don't think that kind of stuff anymore, because I don't feel that way anymore. Have I ever relapsed? No. I mean, I've never relapsed. I have had days where I've felt shitty. And for those who don't know, I recovered from depersonalization. It's been 5 or 6 years, 6 years, something like that, 2010. And so, I've been over it for a long time. And have I ever relapsed? Never. I've had some bad hangovers, let's say, where, you have a really bad hangover, and you're a person that's like highly sensitive, I would say. Most people with depersonalization have their nervous system is not going to be as robust as someone that can just handle, a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol, things like that. So I've had bad days of being hungover. That's probably the closest I've ever gotten to being fully depersonalized again. But I feel better when the hangover goes away, and you're good again. Because a lot of depersonalization is really grounded in the traumatic issues. You get over that, you're pretty much good. You need to learn relaxation skills as well, and self-care skills, and all that kind of stuff. But no relapse. Now, some people, like, if you read on the internet or whatever, they do pop in and pop out. In depersonalization, like I said, it's a switch, so you can kind of pop in and pop out. Some days, people notice, hey, I popped out of depersonalization. Then they'll realize, then they pop back in for whatever reason. But when you really address the core causes and get over it, it's going to take something pretty massive to relapse. I mean, really, really massive. If you do. And I mean, everybody's different, and every situation is different. But you'd have to enter into a really traumatic situation if you recover from depersonalization to then go back. So those are kind of the things. Depersonalization is a self state. When you get over it, then you're going to have to deal with all the issues that were there before if you haven't dealt with those, right? Your perspective will change because of age and perhaps some of the things you felt. But mostly you'll go back to your old self. You're going to feel integrated. You're going to feel like you moving your hands in a world that's real and three-dimensional. You're going to feel when you talk to people that you're emotionally connected and things like that. But, you could have anxiety. You could have some depression. You could be OCD. Whatever your personality is, you have to deal with social skills, all these kinds of things. Those are still going to be there. So yeah, just life is good when you get over depersonalization. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to minimize it. But depersonalization is a very specific thing. It's not everything. It's not every problem that a person has to face, you know. So that's the video on this topic. It's a big topic, and I could probably go on, but that's pretty much it. So take it easy. Stay tuned for more videos.